The 805 Focus is brought to you in part by Nonprofit Connect. Nonprofit Connect provides superior leadership tools and resources so nonprofit leaders and board members can make valuable decisions to move their organization forward to a sustainable and vibrant future. More information on services online at nonprofitconnect.org.
Welcome to 805 Focus. I'm Dr. Cinder Sinclair with Nonprofit Connect, and we will be bringing you the latest on your favorite nonprofits. So get ready to be inspired. Our special guest today is Rolf Geyling, and Rolf is the president of the Santa Barbara Rescue Mission. Welcome, Rolf.
Glad to be here. Good to see you, Cinder.
Oh, gosh. I always love it when I get to talk to you about your fabulous work. You're doing such important work and blessing the lives of so many people in our community, directly and indirectly. And so please tell us about what's going on at the rescue mission these days.
Well, thanks. Well, it's a privilege. I mean, it's just been, we continue to do the work we've done since 1965 of reaching out to the homeless and addicted, providing basic food and shelter and long-term recovery, and still hasn't worn off to us that for the last 4 years now we've been doing it in a brand new remodeled facility that just, first of all, just makes everything a lot easier and a lot more efficient. But what I'm really proud about is it communicates value to the people who come in the facility, because when people are struggling, the places we provide for them is just a reminder, an inherent statement about the value that they're worth this kind of a facility. So grateful to that. Can't even imagine kind of some of the things we've had to do in light of COVID to keep people safe and delivering services. We're just grateful to be able to do it in a facility that will support that and let everybody have comfortable places to rest and showers and get the care they need.
Yeah, it is a beautiful facility.
Thanks.
And the community, pitched in to make that happen. And,
exactly.
And you led the way, you and your team.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so COVID, though, you mentioned that. Tell me how did that impact you?
Well, anytime that we, if we read in the news about spikes in the community, one thing that happens with our population is it really is where you see just the most acute impacts, because we were dealing, and so if we saw waves go through and COVID waves would make their way through jail, and then they would come, and pretty soon we would see them in our population as well. And just the ironic challenge of sheltering in place is not something you can do if you have no shelter. And so trying to be with people and keep them safe, have some kind of reasonable quarantine, was just a real challenge for us. And so there were times where we had to lock down the facility or limit access, which is heart-wrenching, because on the one hand, you still have people coming to you that have no place else to go. And so we're grateful just for working with partners at Public Health and others, first of all, to get people vaccinated, but just now to have some pretty good management protocols in place where we're kind of managing it just like a lot of other schools and institutions are.
That's good. Yeah. So that's sort of maybe the new protocols kind of came out of the COVID challenge?
Yeah, well, I think it was just another thing. I mean, we never, like a lot of institutions, we never managed what we'd be, or we never envisioned what we would have to manage through. But, the thing that is challenging is that, so much of homelessness is dealing with vulnerability with people who already have probably, a higher level of infirmity than the population. They also have less access to care and treatment. And so that was a real struggle to us, especially as we saw just people, people suffered and people died, and as they came through our facility or got COVID, and you just realize that the treatment that now is thankfully, the treatment and the environment, because I think obviously being housed and having a secure place to go to just solves a lot of problems. It plays a role in keeping us healthy.
Yeah, sure.
So anyway, it's definitely changed it, but it's also everyday kind of it's circumstances like that remind us of the important need for services like ours, that the community have a place where people who have had the bottom drop out can find help and basic shelter and take steps toward security.
Yes. So tell us about your homeless program, but what you do with the homeless folks, and then we'll talk about the substance abuse piece. And I know that they're sort of linked, but
well, they definitely are. But I mean, obviously, it's come to the point where the Rescue Mission is the only place between Ventura and Santa Maria that is open 365 nights a year, no questions asked to anyone needing food and shelter. And so there are people that find themselves in difficult circumstances, or law enforcement or Cottage Hospital finds it, and then it's just something we believe it's really important that people always know that at 3 o'clock in the morning you can come to the Rescue Mission and we'll find a way to get you safe and put a roof over your head and keep you secure. And so there's that basic, on-ramp in the community, because if we look at homelessness in the community, anybody just walking down the street can see that there's complexity and there's challenges, and we need, in light of all that, we need an on-ramp where just people are introduced to an agency where they are given basic nutrition and they know where they're sleeping at night, because that then allows us to start to bring further resources of care around them. And so whereas, obviously some people, our classic model is that people would just, come in and they, need some stability for a few weeks until they could get a job and get back on their feet and be on their own. That still is some of what we see, but what we're also seeing are people who are dealing with serious infirmities in terms of health, in terms of mental illness, in terms of age. And so the challenge with that is that the goal of having them be self-sufficient breadwinners in the community is probably not going to happen if you have a woman in her 70s who's struggling with dementia. We're not going to go out and help her find a job. And so then our role as a community, our success is not necessarily a self-sufficient contributing member of our community, but it's somebody who requires compassionate care, finding that and finding the convalescence that we would want any of our seniors to find.
So let's say somebody comes in, do you do like a triage approach so that you say, oh, this one goes in that program because they can get a job eventually, or whatever, and this one not so much?
Well, we don't have that specific. I mean, we do individualized case management, but what's really been encouraging in the community is that we realize that we are part of a network of agencies that are providing different services for people who are on the fringes. We provide food and shelter. There are other public or private agencies providing mental health, providing relationship, just trying to, because we've realized that to move one person who has been chronically homeless into housing probably requires about 8 agencies working together, because there's just different parts. There's vocational rehab, there could be medical stuff there. And so the idea that, one agency could take somebody and be the complete answer to their circumstance is probably not well grounded. But so as people come in, sometimes people come to us, with a referral from another agency. Somebody like in outreach has been working with them, and they come on, or maybe we're the on-ramp and we start saying, okay, here are other agencies. We have something called that are neighborhood navigation centers that we do. There are 2 of them in different parks in the community, and then one meets every Wednesday morning at the Rescue Mission, where all these agencies come, because and just somebody can just come, because most people finding themselves in that situation, it's a myriad of resources they need to contact. And there was a time where you needed to go to medical providers, you needed to go to different nonprofits, you needed to go up to the county facility, and even just getting from one appointment to the next was so challenging. And so we've realized it's a much better use of our community resources if we all come together and we, as different providers, are directly helping clients and also able to look over at the next table and put them in touch with somebody that can help them. So what we do at the Rescue Mission is not specific in our, the program is providing basic food and shelter, and then we try to find, sometimes a longer term stay is better in our facility,
Yeah.
or we're referring them to somewhere else. But we also feel like in the midst of that, we also just have a commitment to maintaining a portion of our beds for emergency shelters, so that when people are in need, they can come in. They don't need to apply for a program bed or do that.
Yeah. And you do all of this with such a high level of compassion.
Yeah, well, thank you.
That's what I love.
Yeah, well, we are the hands and feet of the faith community broadly. So, I mean, we have a history as an evangelical Christian organization, and that is still probably the bulk of our support. But we really partner and work with, volunteers and donors that have the same concern for suffering people. And to me, that's one of the things that our team does so well is it just embodies care. And we're not just a provider of services, but while we do that, we are forming relationships with people. We are affirming their dignity, and that's truly, that's instrumental in their transformation.
Yeah, I like that, affirming their dignity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, what would you say to someone? You hear people all the time talking about, gosh darn, those homeless people, they shouldn't be downtown, they're in my way, whatever somebody might say. What would you say to someone who's concerned about the homeless problem in downtown Santa Barbara?
Well, it's a challenge. I mean, on the one hand, it's very important that we always remember that these are human beings who are suffering, and there's nobody there may be people that are staunch and say, this is what I prefer to live outside, but I guarantee you that is the product of who knows what kind of trauma or ill circumstances that get somebody there, because nobody grows up saying, oh, I'm going to be homeless, that's going to be great.
Right.
And so it's very important that suffering people be met with compassion, and we say this is a human being that needs help, and we need to kind of remember they're human beings suffering before anything else. Now the fact is that suffering people can be very disruptive and hard to see, especially if we see mental illness, if we see abrasiveness. It's not substance abuse. It's not challenge. It's not that it's not challenging, but and then I think on the other side though too, it's okay for us to look at somebody living in substandard conditions or in a public place and I think we can say that is not acceptable. And that's not a judgment, that is me saying a human being shouldn't live on a park bench.
Yeah.
And we need to figure out something to do. And hopefully that same sense of, whereas saying that's acceptable could be outrage and some kind of judgment, I say it's more us saying, no, we have to figure out something better as a community to help this person. And so therein lies a challenge. And I think what I really appreciate is the movement that's taking place in our community of, I think, understanding the complexity and just what, the vulnerability of, some of the most visible and disturbing cases of homelessness we see. I think we would also acknowledge that this person needs assistance. They're probably not going to be able to, just make a volitional change and say, oh, I want to get a job now. But that also, I also think within that we need to have community safety and concern, and there are places that are designated in our community for shopping and public spaces that we enjoy and parks that we play in. And I think we have the same need as a community to recognize that that's an appropriate use that should not be impeded by habitation. So Okay,
so let's talk a little bit about your work with substance abuse. And a person comes in, what are their options? How does that work?
Well, about 25, 30 years ago, we landed on that. We obviously recognized that there is a strong link between homelessness, poverty, cyclical incarceration, and substance abuse. And that doesn't mean that every single homeless person is an addict, but it just means that, kind of what I think my predecessors landed on was if we focus on this one area, that could be a way to make a change. And we're saying there's other things that contribute to homelessness, but over time we came to see that if somebody's kind of primary issue might be substance abuse, we have come up with a response to that in our year-long treatment program that brings people in and just we allow them to stabilize. We recognize that addictions run deep, and a lot of the, a 28-day stay in rehab is probably not going to address some of the deep kind of lifestyle issues, patterns, thought patterns. So we have a very strong clinical model that is staffed almost, it's staffed by qualified trained staff, almost all of whom have come through the program. So there's also this lived experience.
Interesting.
And, and so we see, we see that as being, it's very difficult and challenging work, but on the other hand, really necessary that we have, that kind of investment in people that is transformative. And it's really fun to see what happens over time, that people take steps of health and wholeness and they get jobs, and there's, kind of this, this sense that, for us, whereas we protect the anonymity of our clients, it makes us very proud at times to go to a place of business and see somebody and we know where they came from, and that's just exciting to see people have just jobs and families and be contributing to our community because they were able to find recovery from addictions.
Yeah, so I think your graduation ceremonies are so inspiring.
Yeah.
Those stories. I bet you have
a
story you could share.
Well, we do. Yeah, we do our graduations 3 times a year, and they can be publicized on our website. You can get on our mailing list or just watch the website or social media, and you'll find out when they are. But yeah, we have graduated over 900 people, and each one of those is a story of both incredible trauma and incredible grace and humility, because we never kind of we haven't heard the worst story yet. That's one of the things that always is shocking to us, is we will hear a story and then think that has to be the most painful thing I've ever heard about childhoods and traumas inflicted, and you just realize, boy, addiction is really something that these ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, just contribute and wreak havoc on people. And then yet, despite all that trauma, when people take steps of appropriate responsibility and they summon what it takes to, admit they have a problem and deal with it. So, if I think about one of the stories I think of recently is that so much of, we have a really solid treatment model, but so much of it happens in the context of a community reaching out. And one of our recent graduates actually was living in the woods, camping out, and was a meth addict, just looked awful. And it was actually, he crossed paths with the church group, and the church just, felt compassion for him and started feeding him and helping him, and over time kind of got him tied into our program. And he came in and they kind of made sure he had what he needed here, but once he came to our doors, they just sent letters of encouragement, and over a year, this incredible transformation took place, in which he, first of all, was a tall guy, and just by eating well and healthy was, put on a ton of weight and was this Adonis. And then through a dentist in the community, we had his teeth fixed so that he was, and to see him graduate, and then just, when he came to graduation, there was a little pew full of church ladies that all came to cheer him on.
Oh, gosh.
And he
That's a fabulous story.
graduated with, and he's somebody that really did not have a lot of tie with family, but now had this community church family that reached out to him, had a job, and just, an amazing transfer. And that's why we do what we do.
I love that story. And so all this great work you're doing, I bet you could use some financial donations that a person can probably make on your website.
Sure. Yeah, we receive no public funding to do what we do, and so what's so special about that is everything we do happens only because somebody in the community cares for the homeless and addicted and wants to help them. And so, we have donations via our website. We send out appeals. People get a lot of letters from me or get invited to, but it's really, it's connecting people with a means to change lives. And so what I think is so important is that, when we look at, rightly, I look at somebody who is, living, at the beach or somewhere where I come, and I think, boy, it's even overwhelming for me, because I can't picture what could I do to make a change. But instead I could say, well, I can't do that much by myself, but I can partner with people who are. I can partner with an agency that is really designed to do this. And so we're grateful for that. We have volunteers that come in and do everything from tutoring to mentoring to helping us serve meals. And so it's a special place where the community just reaches out and loves.
That is a powerful message, Rolf.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for all your good work and for sharing it with us today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And thank you for joining us on 805 Focus, and we'll see you next time.